Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Would somebody like to read?
Sorry, I cannot read. If somebody can read, I'm driving. So, sorry.
Okay. Haribol, sorry, Neha. I'm sorry, can't hear you.
I said I cannot read. I'm sorry because I'm driving. So
Oh, you
maybe
can't.
someone else can
Okay.
read.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Sorry. I thought you.
Yeah.
All right, I can read. Violet Banaras.
Anybody, actually, we are supposed to read because she cannot read. It's stress on her eyes. So if somebody can volunteer to read, please. Please, I request somebody to volunteer. Just read a little. It's okay.
I'll read.
Okay.
While at Benares, Caitanya had an interview with the learned sannyasis of that town in the house of a Maratha Brahman, who had invited all the sannyasis for an entertainment. At this interview, Chaitanya showed a miracle which attracted all the sannyasis to him. Then ensued reciprocal conversation. The sannyasis were headed by their learned reader, Prakashananda.
Headed by their most learned leader, Prakashananda Saraswati. After a short,
दीपिका भी पढ़ रही है एक्चुअली आप लोग दोनों पढ़ रहे हो
आंटी आप पढ़ रहे हो कि आंटी आप पढ़ोगी
नहीं आप पढ़ो
अच्छा. After a short controversy, they submitted to Mahaprabhu and admitted that they had been misled by commentaries of Shankaracharya. It was impossible, even for learned scholars, to oppose Chaitanya for a long time, as there was some spell in him which touched their hearts and made them weep for their spiritual improvement. The sannyasis of Banaras soon fell at the feet of Chaitanya and asked for his grace, Kripa. Chaitanya then preached pure bhakti and instilled into their hearts a spiritual love for Krishna, which obliged them to give up sectarian feelings. The whole population of Banaras on this wonderful conversion of sannyasis turned Vaishnava, and they made a massive sankirtana with their new lord.
So we had recently read about this in Caitanya Caritamita, where the pastime was being described in quite a bit detail, that Lord Chaitanya was in Banaras. He was staying at the house of Chandrasekhar Acharya, and then he was invited by one Brahmana to take lunch at his house, and also invited by the other sannyasis. And so Lord Chaitanya, he accepted the invitation, and then when he went there, he didn't immediately go in the assembly of those sannyasis. He sat at the place where people wash their hands and feet. But there was so much effulgence coming from him that all the other sannyasis could understand that this is the Supreme Lord Himself. He is the source of all the Brahma Jyoti. Because the other sannyasis their conception was that the Brahma Jyoti is the highest. There's nothing beyond the Brahma Jyoti. But after seeing Lord Chaitanya and after hearing from Lord Chaitanya, they all got they all began to understand the absolute truth, and they all became pure devotees. They all got Krishna prema, and they all became Vaishnavas. Prakashananda Saraswati was the leader, and all his followers also became followers of Lord Chaitanya.
After sending Sanatana to Vrindavan, Mahaprabhu went to Puri again through the jungles with his comrade Balabhadra. Balabhadra reported that Mahaprabhu showed a good many miracles on his way to Puri, such as making tigers and elephants dance on hearing the name of Krishna.
This is what yesterday I posted on the morning chat, the Kirtan. Guru Maharaj was there in this Jharkhand forest. Lord Chaitanya had passed through this Jharkhand forest, and on his way to Vrindavan, from Puri he was going to Vrindavan, he passed this Jharkhand forest, and the tigers, the elephants, the lions, the deer, they all started chanting Hare Krishna. They all got Krishna prema. Lord Chaitanya was freely giving them love for Krishna. Even to the animals, he was not discriminating.
From this time, that is from his 31st year, Mahaprabhu continually lived in Puri, in the house of Kashi Mishra, until his disappearance in his 48th year at the time of Sankirtana in the temple of Tota Gopinatha. During these 18 years, his life was one of settled love and piety. He was surrounded by numerous followers, all of whom were the highest order of Vaishnava, and who were distinguished from the common people by their purest character and learning, firm religious principles, and spiritual love of Radha Krishna.
So then he was staying in Puri in the house of Kashi Mishra. And Mahaprabhu left this world when he was only 48 years old. And during this time, he was continuously doing Sankirtan, Harina. He disappeared in the temple of Tota Gopinath. Tota Gopinath was the deity of Gadadhar Pandit. Gadadhar Pandit was taking care of this deity. And the deity is still there in Jagannath Puri, and people can see them. So can we continue reading?
Swarupa Damodar, who had been known by the name of Purushottam Charya while Mahaprabhu was in Nadia, joined him from Banaras and accepted service as his secretary. No production of any poet or philosopher could be laid before Mahaprabhu unless Swarupa had passed it as pure and useful. Raya Ramananda was his second mate. Both he and Swarupa would sing while Mahaprabhu expressed his sentiment on a certain point of worship. Parmanand Puri was his minister in matters of religion. There are hundreds of anecdotes described by his biographers which we do not think it needs here to reproduce Mahaprabhu's slept short. His sentiments carried him far and wide in the firmament of spirituality every day and night, and all his admirers and followers reached him throughout. He worshipped, communicated with his missionaries in Vrindavan, and conversed with those religious men who newly came to visit him. He sang and danced, took no care of himself, and oft times lost himself in religious beatitude. All who came to him believed in him and all beautiful God appearing in the nether world for benefit of mankind. He loved his mother all along and sent her Mahaprasadana. And then with those who went to Nadir. He was most amiable in nature. Humility was personified in him. He appointed Prabhu Nityanand as missionary in charge of Bengal. His sweet appearance gave cheer to all who came in contact with him. He appointed Prabhu Nityanand as missionary in charge of Bengal. He dispatched 6 disciples, Goswamis, to Vrindavan to preach love in upcountry. He punished all of his disciples who deviated from holy life. This he markedly did in the case of Junior Haridasa. He never lacked in giving proper instructions in life to those who solicited them. This was seen in his teaching to Raghunath Das Swami. His treatment of Haridas' seniors showed how he loved spiritual men and how he defied caste distinction in cause of spiritual brotherhood.
This is just like in a very short way to Bhaktivinoda Thakur is showing what Mahaprabhu was doing. He never spoke philosophy to anyone and everyone except to his very, very close associates. Mostly it was Ramananda Raya and Swarup Damodar. In their association, he would actually speak of philosophy, but whereas to the common people, he was just chanting the holy name. That's what he did, Sankirtan, Harinam. And he was just spreading love of Krishna. Anyone, and everyone who came in touch with him would get Krishna Prema. And he kept on sending preachers to different parts of the country to also give this Krishna Prema to others. Then his love for his mother was very sweet. In the pastimes we can see. Many knew that he's the Supreme Lord himself, especially his close associates. They knew that he is the Supreme Lord himself, and because he also showed his different forms to his different devotees. He showed his Sadbhuj form, the six-arm form, to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, I think, also to Raya Ramananda. So at different times, he showed his different forms. And so his close associates knew he's God, but he never would allow them to call him God. He would say, no, I'm a devotee of God. And that's how it was. And he came to teach us how to become lovers of Krishna. So it says humility was personified in him. So it's not that only he's preaching others to be humble, but he himself was very humble. And yeah, of course, he sent Nityananda Prabhu to go preach in Bengal. He sent the six Goswamis to Vrindavan. He strictly followed the principles of sannyas, and he wanted his associates also to strictly follow all the principles. And of course, it's mentioned of Haridas Thakur. He had a very special relationship with Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was unable to visit the Jagannath temple every day because he was not born a Hindu, and Jagannath temple has its rules which are coming from a very, very long time. So the Lord himself would go and meet Haridas. So Lord Chaitanya and Lord Jagannath are the same. So every day he himself would go and meet Haridas Thakur, take prasad for him, take Mahaprasad for him. So he actually showed that how there is loving relationships. So this was a prologue by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And then there is a note about this edition.
Srila Prabhupada completed Teachings of Lord Chaitanya in 1967, and his Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, then known as ISKCON Press, published it in 1968. In 1974, the BBT published an extensively revised editing with Sanskrit diacritical marks and selected verses from Sri Caitanya Caritamita, the source book for Teachings of Lord Chaitanya.
So this teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada, that means so early in the movement, he has written it. 1967. He established ISKCON in 66. So already in 67, he really wanted to give the world this teachings of Lord Chaitanya because it's very relevant to us. Krishna came himself 500 years ago as Lord Chaitanya to show us how to perfect our lives, how to get this goal of human life, which is love for Krishna. So we can see the great urgency which Srila Prabhupada felt to give us these teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And then, of course, it's based on the book Sri Caitanya Caritamita, where there's more of the pastimes also recorded.
For the present edition, the editors compared the two previous editions. The original manuscript is lost and restored some of the flavor of the original. In addition, they found that perhaps owing to Srila Prabhupada's heavily accented English, the uneven quality of his dictated tapes, or the difficult philosophical concepts in some passages of teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the original transcribers and editors had occasionally erred. These errors, constituting less than 3% of total text, have now been corrected so that an already perfect book has become even more perfect for its increased fidelity to Srila Prabhupada's original words and intended meaning.
This is just some few words from the editors when they're saying what they needed to edit some things.
Dedication. Dedicated to the sacred service of Srila Sachidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who initiated the teachings of Lord Caitanya in the Western world. National University, Canada, 1896, the year of my birth. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami.
Because it was in 1896 that Srila Prabhupada was born in 1896, and it was in 1896 that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur sent the book, The Life and Precepts of Lord Chaitanya, to this McGill University in Canada. And when the devotees were in Canada, they found this book in the library and they showed it to Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada has dedicated this book to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Which brings us to chapter 1.
Teachings to Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami, the younger brother of Sanatan Goswami, went to Prayag, the modern city of Allahabad, with his younger brother Vallabh. When the two brothers heard that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying there, they both became very much pleased and went to see the Lord. At that time, the Lord was on his way to visit the temple of Bindu Madhava. On the way to the temple, the Lord was chanting and dancing, and thousands of people were following him. Some were crying, and some were laughing. Some were dancing, and some were singing. Some were falling on the ground, offering obeisances to the Lord. And all of them were roaring the holy name, Krishna, Krishna. It is said that in spite of being at the confluence of the rivers Ganges and Yamuna, Prayaga was never flooded until the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, at which time the city was overflooded by the love of Krishna.
So Prayag is the confluence of the Yamuna and Ganga. It's present-day Allahabad. And this is where Rupa Goswami went to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he instructed Rupa Goswami there. So Rupa Goswami also had another brother called Anupam. Anupam's name is also Vallabh. It's the same person. And so Rupa Goswami and Vallabh, Anupam, they both went to Prayag. And at that time, whenever Lord Chaitanya, wherever he went, everyone would be just in ecstasy chanting the holy names. They would be in ecstasy, overwhelmed with love of Krishna. So that's why it's so appropriately said that it's not that the river Ganges and Yamuna were overflowing, but there was an overflow of Krishna prema everywhere, that everyone is drowning in this ocean of nectar of love of God. Everyone is singing the holy names and everyone is in ecstasy.
The two brothers, Rupa Goswami and Vallabha, stayed aloof in an uncrowded place and witnessed the great crowd and wonderful scene. When the Lord danced, he raised his arms and shouted, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. The people all about him were astonished to see his activity. Indeed, the wonderful scene is difficult to describe. After visiting the temple, the Lord accepted prasadam, food offered to the deity at the house of Decanist, Southern Brahmana with whom he was acquainted. While sitting alone at the Brahmana's home, the Lord was visited by Rupa Goswami and Vallabha. From a distance, the two brothers fell down on the ground to offer obeisances, and they chanted many Sanskrit verses from the scriptures. When the Lord saw Rupa Goswami offering obeisances before him, he became very pleased and said, My dear Rupa, please get. The Lord then informed Rupa Goswami of the causeless mercy of Krishna upon him, for Krishna had just delivered him from the materialistic way of life, which is based simply on pounds, shilling, pence.
So, of course, Rupa Goswami and Anupam, they've come to meet Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya gave a lot of mercy to Rupa Goswami because he gave Rupa Goswami, he empowered Rupa Goswami to write all the Bhakti Shastras about devotional service, how to engage in devotional service. So he's telling him that Krishna has given you all so much mercy now.
The Lord accepted the two brothers as his devotees, and he cited a verse from the scriptures stating that the Lord will not accept a Brahmana who has studied the four Vedas if he is not a devotee, but he will accept someone from a very low family if he is a pure devotee. Then the Lord embraced the two brothers, and out of his causeless mercy, he touched their heads with his lotus feet. Blessed in this way, the brothers offered prayers to the Lord in their own words. The prayers indicated that Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Krishna himself, that he had assumed a fair complexioned form, Gauranga, and that he was the most munificent incarnation of Krishna because he was distributing love of Krishna. Srila Rupa Goswami also recited a verse later found in the book of Govinda Leelamrita. Yo atnana matam bhuvanam dayalur ulagayan api akarot pramatam swa.
So Prema Sampad. Can't hear you, Deepika. Haribo.